was such a hot article 50 years ago. Didn't realize it until we decided to do this show. So what does that tell you? That tells you that a lot of things go kind of fly under the radar, and we don't even realize what's happening until it springs up and it shocks us that something has changed in our world.
Well, there's that Elton John song. I think it's "Leave On" is the name of it. He talks about New York Times said God is dead. Well, actually, it was Time Magazine in 1966. The New York Times may have said it as well. But here's our phone number, dear listeners of Take Two. We call it Take Two because your take matters, your opinion, your thoughts. 1-800-585-9396. 1-800-585-9396. One thing is for certain, that the number of people who no longer consider themselves to be a part of any religious denomination or tradition, that has risen dramatically in recent decades. So, dear listeners, why do we think that is? Why are people suddenly tossing off God, saying, I not only don't need him, but he just no longer exists for me anymore? I mean, why is that happening? What is it? Laziness? Is it sin? Has sin blinded people? Is it just narcissism, people, or a spirit of independence? What are the factors that are causing people to stop practicing religious traditional faith, turn away from God, and just believe that God no longer exists?
Personally, I believe there's a lot of factors that play into it, Jerry. It could be environmental. A lot of things are happening in our environment that cause people to really have just a sense of a bit of despair, or things are always going in a negative way, and that can weigh on people's spiritual life. It could be that in your own personal life, things have happened where God wasn't what you thought God should be. And so you put God in this box, and God didn't perform the way you thought maybe God should perform. And so that makes you feel disillusioned. It makes you feel kind of just say, okay, God must not exist. I'm out of here. I'm going to do it my way, the human way. And there's a lot of that. New Age has really risen a lot, and a lot of that centers around the self and what you can control in your own being and your own destiny, and you're all about you. And that's what New Age is all about, the taking in account that the person is almost has godlike qualities in the sense, or can control the world around them. So I believe, Jerry, there's a lot of factors that play into this of why there is a significant decline. But if it is true, and I don't doubt it, that the Pew Research and the other research that's out there says that the millennials are really turning away from organized religion and associating with a certain denomination of Christianity, that's troubling. That's a real problem, because that's our future. Those children are our future. Those are the kids that are going to be taking care of us in nursing homes. Those are the kids that are going to be making decisions, Supreme Court decisions, all that kind of stuff. And it's important for us to really get in their minds and their hearts to figure out why they are turning away. So if you're a young person right now listening to Take Two, and you have a very strong faith, will you call in and inspire others of your generation? 1-800-585-9396.
We would absolutely be delighted, too, to have a conversation with any of you who may be in that percentage of people who have simply said, well, God isn't that meaningful to me anymore. I don't need God in my life. Or maybe you once practiced some religious faith and now you no longer do. You could educate us. You could enlighten us as to what some of the factors were that helped you make that decision. So feel free to call. And others of us, if you have remained faithful, but you look around and you see just the decline in religious faith and tradition and practice and belief in God, what would you offer as a way that we could maybe turn that around culturally? 1-800-585-9396. 1-800-585-9396.
So the topic today is God dead? That's what we're going to be talking about. We want to really hear from you. You're going to drive the show. You're going to drive the conversation. So Andrew's going to be up first, but you hear that music. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to go to Andrew in South Dakota. He's going to lead us off. And we're going to talk about how God plays into our lives. Stay with us.
Raymond Arroyo with Mother Angelica, A Remarkable Life. In the year 1943, young Rita Rizzo, Mother Angelica, was suffering from such terrible stomach maladies, she braved a blizzard to come here, to the home of Rhoda Wise. Now, Miss Wise was a local mystic in Canton, Ohio, and a purported healer. She greeted Rita at the door, brought her into her bedroom, and sat her in this chair. Now, Miss Wise contended our Lord sat in this chair mystically when they visited from time to time. She didn't touch Rita. She didn't pray over her. She just handed her novena to St. Therese of the Child Jesus and told her to pray that prayer. 9 days later, young Rita's stomach symptoms vanished, and thus began a lifelong love affair with God and untold works. Stay with EWTN as we celebrate the life and legacy of Mother Angelica.
This is Bishop John Brungart of the Diocese of Dodge City.
This is Colin Donovan, Vice President for Theology.
This is Father Larry Richards, host of Open Line Thursday. Thanks for listening to EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
We're so glad you joined us on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. This is where we take a fresh look at ourselves and the world around us. And you just heard a spot of greetings by Father Larry Richards. I'm so excited. Father Larry Richards is going to be in St. Louis this weekend for the One Faith Experience. And I cannot wait to meet him and hear his unique talk that he'll be giving this weekend at the Chaffetz Arena in St. Louis. There's still tickets available, dear listeners. So if you want to drive in or fly in, come on over to the Chaffetz Arena in St. Louis. You can get your tickets right at the door. We'll welcome you. Jerry and I will be there, and we're very, very excited to see you. You can go to onefaithexperience.com. Okay, as promised, Andrew, you are first up in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, listening to EWTN Radio on the Lamb radio station. Hi, Andrew. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Hi. Can you hear me all right?
Oh, yes, perfectly.
Great. Yeah, I guess I probably do fall in that millennial category. It's hard to tell if I fall in the very beginning of that or not. But I guess I never really lost my faith. I just stopped practicing that age-old story of a guy falls for a girl who doesn't believe and just kind of drifts away. I just kind of followed the story of the prodigal son, in that if I live my own life for a while and kind of ignore God and put him on a shelf, he'll be there for me when I come back. And that all sounds well and good, and I know it's the truth. It's just that time away is not worth it. It's just so nice to be back in the faith and have that stronger than ever. But that time away really lets the world sink its teeth into you, and it's really hard to get back out of that even after you accept God and follow him and his way for you. It's still there's still a lot of gunk that you got to clean out, and it's just at times not worth the trouble.
Andrew, yeah, you're right. There, a lot of stuff does happen. A lot of gunk, as you say, kind of clings onto us. The beautiful thing is God can and does clean that off. Sometimes it can take a little bit more effort, perhaps a little more than if we had never maybe left the fold. But your story is not unique. I remember myself when I was probably 18, 19. I remember I said a prayer. I said, God, I'm going to go off in this direction right now. I said, please just don't let go of me. Now, don't try that at home, boys and girls. I wouldn't recommend that as a prayer. See, I prayed a lot of prayers that probably weren't wise, but the thing is, God looks at us where we are at that moment, and he is so loving, and he's the hound of heaven. He keeps chasing us down. And Andrew, I rejoice that he has brought you back into the fold. And Debbie, I know you've got some insights to share as well.
Well, I'm beaming ear to ear, Andrew, and I just want to echo what Jerry said. Welcome home, and you are a wonderful example for us today, so that because we need to hear from you saying that when you put God on a shelf, and I always say put God in a box, but I actually like how you said it better, putting God on a shelf that you know he's going to be there for you and kind of dust him off whenever you need him. But the world takes you on twists and turns, and then you kind of get tumbled around, scruffed up a bit, and then you come back. And when you do come back, there's a renewed sense of just a feeling of freshness, in the sense that you can start over in the eyes of God, and it's the slate has wiped clean, and it's beautiful and shiny again, and it looks wonderful. But I think what's really important is how, Andrew, how do we effectively communicate to our youth that they don't have to go through all the rough and tumble things of life. They don't have to do that. Well, there's going to always be that kind of stuff. I mean, we know we live in a fallen world, so we know that. But maybe they're going to get, extra roughing up, if you will, by putting God on that shelf. How would you best communicate that to our youth, Andrew? Because you've experienced it. So you're the best to speak to these other young females and males that are maybe kind of getting off the path. What would you prescribe?
I guess the best way to look at it is there's just a lot of joy and peace in living in the way that God wants you to live. I know that when I was growing up, it all seemed like a bunch of really strict rules, and I didn't really understand it or why they were there. I guess time taught me that they're more than rules. They're guidelines on how to live a really happy and joyful life. And I guess that's the best way to look at it. And I don't know if a whole lot of kids are being taught that that's the way to look at them. And it's
right.
better, or it's not so much about memorizing the 10 Commandments and knowing them front and back, but to just know that it's what
right.
God's instructions are, to just live a really happy life.
I love that you said that, Andrew, and I would just want to, something you said, I sparked real fast, and I said to Jerry, I've got to say one more thing to Andrew, because you just hit it with that. When I'm in the classroom with young adults, I always share with them that the so-called rules that they see or hear about in the Catholic Church, or the guidelines, they're actually tools for freedom. It's more those I guess for lack of a better word, let's call it guidelines. Rules, sometimes people get really weird about the word rules. I don't know why, because I guess people are afraid of discipline or whatever. But those guidelines are tickets to freedom, spiritual freedom, eternal life. They're the lottery. And if we can look at it with those spiritual eyes, Andrew, oh my goodness. And you said it. You expressed it so beautifully. We must communicate that to our youth, that those guidelines are our way of complete, beautiful spiritual freedom. And like you said, joy and happiness. Thank you, Andrew. I made a note of that. I'm so glad you said that, Andrew.
Andrew, thanks for calling Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. We appreciate that. And again, we are so grateful for what God has done in your life. Today we're talking about, is God dead? Many people in the world, that's a symbolic way of saying people just don't want God in their lives. They don't think he exists. Of course, his existence is not dependent on a majority opinion or what we think, but we want your take at 1-800-585-9396. Following Andrew is Mary in Alma, Michigan, listening to EWTN Radio on Sirius XM 130. Hi, Mary. You're up next.
Hello.
Hi there.
I was thinking that we're so geared to be so self-sufficient and independent, and it's almost a weakness. So weakness and faith are equated, and that's so wrong, because we're stronger with God, and he'll make the best of our talents with his grace to help others and make the world a better place. But alone we're not nearly as good. And there's a lot of practical atheism where people think they're believing, but they don't live a life that really indicates or gives them the benefits of faith.
Yeah, it calls to mind a passage, Mary, in the Bible that I've talked about many times on this show, 2 Corinthians 12, where St. Paul talks about he's asked God to remove this thorn from his flesh. And really what Paul is kind of saying there is, look, God, if you take this from me, I'll be all right. I can handle things after that. I can take it from there, God. Just please remove this thorn, whatever that was, whether it was a temptation or a recurring sin or whatever it was. He talks about an angel of Satan to beat him and so forth. But God says his grace is sufficient, and It says, "For my power is made perfect in weakness." And so we can be very, very strong, but it is not in our self-sufficiency, Debbie. It's our strength is in Christ, and it requires total surrender, and then we can accomplish anything that he calls us to do.
Exactly, and that's why, Mary, at the beginning of the show, if you heard when we were doing the introduction of the topic, I was sharing about the New Age movement, and a lot of what's happening in the world is everybody thinks that they can control everything that's around them. You know, you just put these thoughts out there, and you can control the quote unquote universe, and you can do this and you can do that, and then God gets further and further and further away from people's thoughts and minds. It's really honestly that simple. I've seen it with the youth and young adults. It happens that easily, where people just put God maybe second, third, fourth, fifth on the list, and God just keeps going down and down on the list. And like Andrew had said, there's so many people that just stick God on a shelf and say, "Oh, he's always going to be there for me," you know. And it's really it's to me it's unfortunate because, like Andrew said at the first caller, you're missing out. People are missing out on all the joy of all of the perfectness of what God has to offer, the abundant life that God has us to offer here on earth and in eternal life. And so, Mary, I agree with you that there is too much of a focus on self and not enough focus on God and the reliance of God. But again, I just want to throw it back there real quickly. How would you express it to our youth? I mean, we can say it, we can state it, but how do we get them to start thinking about it, Mary? I'm curious. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that, with the Mass now, we say we have a duty to love God. And I think if we made it part of our responsibility as human beings to give God his due, I think that's a big equation. Like we do what we should do, but always be giving what God is owed by us. And people don't even feel that way. People don't even have a sense of duty toward their God. And I think that I think we're afraid to bring big concepts to kids. And I think we owe it to them to bring big concepts to them.
Very well stated, Mary. Bless you. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining us on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Our number is 1-800-585-9396, talking about the decline in a belief in or dependence on God in our culture and our society, among people of all ages, really. And we want your takes on not only why you think that might be happening, but maybe you could share an insight or two as to what could possibly be done to help stem that and turn things in a positive direction. Bill is up next in Huntington, West Virginia, listening there to EWTN Radio. Hi, Bill. Thanks for calling Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Hi. I know you've been talking about some of the bleak numbers in the Pew Research. I think there may be a glimmer of light within those numbers. And I'm particularly intrigued with the increasing number of people, especially millennials, who claim to be spiritual but not religious. It seems like, yes, there may be a falling off of in some categories, but that category is growing. And then the question is how do we engage those millennials who are spiritual, who have a desire to experience the spiritual, who have a hunger for it, but maybe they're just trying to feed that hunger in some different ways. And to me, that gives some hope that millennials are not lost, but rather there's a transition, there's a change that's going on in the way that they're experiencing the spiritual or engaging in it.
Bill, I wanted to just share with you a couple things on that. I would totally agree with you that young folks saying that they're spiritual but not religious is growing. That's my understanding as well, and from the research that I have done. But I want to just throw this out there to you and see what your thoughts are on this. We have a culture right now filled with talk show hosts. I won't name names. Talk show hosts, celebrities, all sorts of new age kind of gurus, if you will, who are teaching that exact philosophy of you can be spiritual and God will meet you where you're at, and you can, basically create your own spirituality, your own really religion, if you really want to look at it, because it's whatever your belief is, that's kind of your religion in a sense. So I would agree that that is the accepted kind of phase that's happening right now. But here's the downside of that. That falls into a lot of the new age that we had discussed earlier at the beginning of the show. And Bill, we've got to take a break in just about a minute and a half, so I don't want to lose you. I want to hear this because this is important. This is what people are kind of confusing a little bit. There is a real problem with saying I'm spiritual and not religious. There's a problem with that because when you peel away what people really believe in that, you'll find that God does take a back seat. And so there's the problem right there, that God is not the center of quote unquote just a generic spiritual person. So I wanted to put that out there because I consider myself an extremely spiritual person. I consider Jerry a spiritual person. But we're also religious. And so there's a real disconnect with this word, and it's being tossed around, and a lot of people identify with it and think it's a safe place because if you say the word spiritual, that must mean God, but not necessarily. So I'd love to hear your feedback on that, but I know, Jerry, you're keeping the clock time, and I just want to make sure we don't get Bill cut off.
Well, Bill, have you got some quick thoughts? We are 60 seconds to the break.
I've got some quick thoughts. I think in some respects maybe some are moving towards New Age, but I think that there's also a much greater engagement in social justice issues, feeding the poor. They want to engage in activities that demonstrate that God is moving in them rather than maybe going to sort of an Orthodox traditional church. So there may be some of it going to the talk show hosts that you've mentioned, but I'm looking at young people who are wanting to engage. They're wanting to do. They're much more kinesthetic, hands-on, rather than thinking deep thoughts. They want to go out and do something, like go for a walk or clean the neighborhood.
Well, Bill, those are good thoughts. Hang on, we'll let you go on that, Bill, because you're probably pretty busy. We'll comment a little bit more on the other side of the break, and then many, many more calls. So stay with us.
If you're currently an EWTN media missionary or just interested in becoming one, we've got some great news. EWTN Media Missionaries has a new and improved website. EWTNmissionaries.com, designed with you in mind. Our new site is loaded with great features and it's easy to navigate. There are so many different ways that you can help EWTN. Join us in sharing the eternal word with the world. Visit EWTNmissionaries.com today.
All of our advances in social networking and communication are amazing, but if we don't keep it all in place, we might end up in touch with the news of the day, 1,000, quote, friends online, and 1 million work emails, but we lose touch with the most important things in life, like the people right in front of us, and God revealing Himself to us through the experiences of daily life. I know it's not easy, but you have to seize the silence. Carve out moments to unplug. Read a book, say a prayer, or just stand in the sun and take a deep breath. All the noise will be waiting for you when you're done, but you'll face it all a little differently. In the words of Mother Teresa, the fruit of silence is prayer. The fruit of prayer is faith. The fruit of faith is love. The fruit of love is service. And the fruit of service is peace. If you don't have peace, go back to step 1. Got silence? This is Chris Stefanik from RealLifeCatholic.com on EWTN Radio.
Coming to EWTN Television.
On May 12th, join us in making history as tens of thousands of Canadians gather on Parliament Hill to march for life. EWTN will bring you live coverage of this landmark event in its entirety, hosted by Doug Keck and Father Joseph Mary Wolfe, along with Jim and Joy Pinto on Parliament Hill, the National March for Life, from Ottawa, Canada, Thursday, May 12th at 11:30 a.m. Eastern on EWTN.
Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, and your takes, as always, are driving another excellent discussion about what is perceived, and polls show this, studies show this, a decline in the a belief in God or a dependence upon God, kind of a turning away from Him. What can we do about that, or what do you think are some of the reasons for that? 1-800-585-9396. I just wanted to tag on to, Debbie, the great comments you made and Bill's great insights as well. I just think that the I'm spiritual but not religious does have the dangers, Debbie, that you talked about, and I agree with that. I think there is a possibility, there is the bright side to that too, and that is people who are doing corporal works of mercy, getting involved in social justice and causes and so forth. That's doing what Christ would have us do. It may be disconnected from religion at a certain time, but it could be a doorway. It could be an opportunity for them to be led by the Holy Spirit to say, there really has to be a reason why I'm doing this. There has to be a God behind this, and if there's a God behind this, there must be a church behind that. So I think it could have very positive benefits for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think Bill said that beautifully, and you did as well, Jerry. And I think that's great. If it is a doorway into a maturity as a Christian, where the sacraments can then be you can fully partake in the sacraments, and then you have that fullness that God really wants for all of us. Then I would say, that would be a positive thing. So, boy, I tell you what, Jerry, our listeners are awesome. These conversations, I'm telling you, dear listeners, if you could see the notes I make every single show, you guys are so amazing. So thank you for participating in this wonderful conversation. Next up is Ann, listening to EWTN Radio in Louisiana on Christ Our King Radio. Hi, Ann. Thank you for waiting so very long. You get our Patience Award today, Ann.
Thank you for taking my call. I am a cradle Catholic. I'm very proud of my faith. I use it in my art and everything to let people know who and what I stand for. As I told the screener earlier, I'm very concerned and disturbed by the number of priests that are serving in our area and other areas who appear to be very effeminate to me. I have found a safe place in my soul for that to land, but I also work and serve in a community, urban community, where these churches are located. And a lot of the youth are practicing homosexuals who claim to know things about our priest. And I listen to them, and I try to tell them, evil seeps into the church as well, but to not give up on their faith. They always ask me, how could God allow these things to happen? There was one priest in our community that was involved with a young boy and was removed, but not very far, like 160 miles away from us. But that was
Ann, let me share some thoughts on this. And this is a very topic that's very near and dear to my heart and Debbie's as well, because I do, as you may or may not know, I have a ministry called Vocation Boom, and we encourage and promote priestly vocations. And I could just say with absolute certainty and confidence, not only are the numbers up, but the quality of the men coming in today are outstanding. Doesn't mean they're without their baggage. Many of them have issues, for example, with pornography or previous sexual behavior or what have you, or family issues, you name it. But they're getting excellent formation. They're being open and honest, and there's a great dialogue going on now between candidates for the priesthood and those who are forming them. That does not mean that throughout the history of the church there haven't been men who have made it through formation for whatever reason, either hiding certain proclivities or maybe being very, very open about them and still being allowed to be ordained priests. And that is, in my opinion, Debbie, that is for God to sort out ultimately in the end. Now, what Ann is talking about here is there may be young boys in the area who are at least investigating homosexual behavior. she says they may have something on a priest or something. Something's got to be said to a local bishop or another priest or something, and that's certainly way above what we can get into on this program here. But I mean, if a priest, Debbie, has what appear to be perhaps some effeminate tendencies, that doesn't necessarily in itself mean anything. I happen to know somebody who appears to be a little bit that way, happily married, and has, I think, 9 kids. So, it's not always an indication, but the church has to be very, very careful. I think that's maybe the nugget that I would, posit out of all of this.
Right. And I'm glad you shared about the quality of men that are coming into formation. I think that's important that everyone knows that there is a really strong and deep and thorough formation happening for the young men that are answering the call. But Anne, back to your comment real quickly, where or your question of the boys who kind of confide in you and share some thoughts to you. And I love the fact that, Anne, that you constantly defer back to remaining faithful to the faith, and that's important, because for me, this is me personally now. I'm not talking representing the Catholic Church. This is just me, Debbie, talking. I had an uncle who was a priest. I have an aunt who's a nun, and I had priests and nuns in our homes all the time, that they would just hang out because we had a family of religious. And you have to understand that these men are still human with the ability to sin, and that doesn't change the faith, though. And I always say that to everyone that I speak to that brings up any type of controversy or anything that happens in our church that is a stain. First of all, we have the gift of free will. That's why things happen. That's why God allows things to happen. We have the free will. We also have the stain of original sin. That's why things happen. So God is not, I don't believe God is at all quote unquote, allowing it to happen. He is just being faithful to the gifts he has given us. So I agree with you, Anne. Stay faithful to our religion and to our faith, because it's what Jesus Christ left for us. And that's the important thing that we have to focus on as Catholic Christians, so we can keep it going into the future. So, Anne, you sound like a beautiful spirit. Thank you. And keep up the beautiful ministry work you're doing in Louisiana. Thank you so very, very much. Thank you for calling in today and kind of transitioning this topic a little and getting us to look at it from different angles. That's what Take Two is all about. So we're going to let you go for the day. Have a beautiful rest of your day. And we're going to move on to Lillian in Pensacola, Florida, listening on EWTN radio on Guadalupe Radio. Hi, Lillian. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. What's your take on this topic?
Hi. I don't have a take on the previous caller, but on the youth topic, I'm not a youth per se, but I'm 25, so I'm still pretty young. But I am a mom now, and I'm a convert to the faith. And I have noticed that a lot of people who are my age, who are in the church, are very passionate. So I did want to call in and say that I see a lot of hopefulness. I don't think it's absolutely unhopeful. But on the other token of that, the secular side of things, I feel like branching off what the other caller, Bill, said about spirituality is that we're all spirit, soul, and body. So when you only focus on the spirit is what dies when the body dies. The soul is what, ascends, hopefully. So I think it's really devastating that people are only focusing on, their spirituality because they're letting their souls die in the process. And I feel like in order to get this to stop, to get younger people more active in the Catholic faith, you have to meet them where they are. Like social media, that's where all the kids are at. That's where you have to be. That's where they're going to see you. And education, and it has to start in the home. I try really hard with both my kids to teach them as much as I possibly can. I mean, I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, so I can't teach them a whole lot. But my 3-year-old crosses himself before he enters and exits the pew, and he says a mealtime prayer and a nighttime prayer. And that's because I'm teaching him that and doing that with him every day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, Lillian, you should be excited that Pope Francis is on Twitter, because he's maximizing social media and all that kind of stuff. So he's engaging all of the youth. And yes, 25. I believe you said you are very young. Keep that youth. I'm double that. So I'm happy for you, and you sound like a great mom. And I would agree with you that the young generation that's coming into the church, like yourself, are on fire and for the faith, and that's beautiful, and that does give us hope, and that does inspire us, and it really is exciting. We need to multiply you, Lillian, by hundreds and hundreds of thousands, and then we'll have a really strong, vibrant youth in our church. So I would agree with you. But what you're doing with your child, you're passing on the faith the same way that the early Christians did as well. And that's huge. You're carrying on the beautiful Christian legacy. And people have to remember that. Planting those seeds with the young ones like you're doing, Lillian, that's ministry at the max. That is awesome. Thank you for sharing your take on this today.
Any other thoughts, Lillian, before we move on?
No, that was really all I had to say. I just wanted to say, just be a testament to my particular age group that I do see so many Catholics at church all the time, and they're, hardcore about their faith. And I go to the Latin Mass, too, and there's a lot of people my age who are families who have a lot of kids, and they all go, with their young kids every Sunday to the 2-hour Mass. So I see a lot of good things as well.
Yeah, there are many, many good things going on. And Lillian, I'm so glad that you contributed this take to the program today. Our topic was not necessarily a happy one, as we talk about a decline in belief in God or dependence on God, and try and offer some insights into what we could do to, at least in our own circle of influence, make a difference. And that would be, of course, our immediate families, our extended families, our friends, our neighbors, our coworkers. And Lillian, that was a beautiful contribution, because, Debbie, it's a good reminder that there are good things going on, especially among young people. We see it definitely in the pro-life movement and many other places. So, Lillian, thanks for the call. Moving right along, we want to get the takes from as many of you as possible today. And Olivia is listening on Oklahoma Catholic Broadcasting in Oklahoma City to EWTN Radio. Hi, Olivia. Welcome.
Hi. That's so funny that the last caller, she's 25 and has a 3-year-old and 1-year-old. Well, I'm in the exact same place in my life. So.
Oh, my goodness. Praise God.
And my husband and I, we actually met when we were in college at church, and we grew together in our faith ever since then. And we're so thankful and so happy that we have. And one thing that I've noticed among people in the similar age group as us is that they are practicing Catholics and they love their faith, but there's one thing that they don't like about it, and it's that we don't believe in using contraception. And I've just seen that a lot, and I've actually even seen people come into the faith who have had this conversation maybe with a priest or a deacon, and they're like, well, that's true, but don't let that stop you from becoming Catholic. And they're almost encouraging them or allowing them to continue on to believe that this is okay, that you can contracept. And I mean, my husband and I, we got married, and I was still in school, and we were practicing natural family planning, and it turned out 9 months later we had our first child. And even though we had maybe other plans of our own, we wouldn't have had it any other way. I mean, our lives are so much better, and we're so happy and thankful that we were open to life, even though we may have hoped to maybe not have a baby right after we got married. We're so happy that we did, and that's just kind of part of the rules that people don't like. But if you follow the commandments of God and let Him work through your life. He's got a greater plan for you. And now my husband works, and he actually teaches confirmation at our church, and I stay home with our 2 daughters, and I'm so grateful that I can do that, because I get to share the faith with them, and I get to bring them to Mass and bring them along with me to confession and teach them forgiveness and God's mercy, and it's just amazing. But I wish that people would give their whole lives. You know, they love God, and they love going to Mass, and they love all the other commandments and all the other teachings of our faith, but for some reason they can't trust in God when it comes to the size of their family. They think, well, we can't afford this many children, or we can't afford to have a baby right now. And that's fine to contemplate that with prayer, but when you use contraception and basically just shut God out of that decision, there's regrets later on in life, and that's just, I wish that people would see the beauty in natural family planning.
Yeah, absolutely, Olivia, and you and Lillian and the previous callers, if you heard the beginning of the show, we talked about that, this idea of the guidelines or the rules or the catechism that is in place. There are some that view it as restrictive, and that, oh my goodness, I can't bend my will to that, because I would be letting God be in control. You know, what am I thinking? I got to be in control. And then there's others that really understand that those guidelines, those rules, the catechism is in place to give us that ultimate freedom. And you shared that perfectly, what you just said. And it does bring us a fulfillment, a joy. It brings us blessings. It brings us eternal blessings. It brings us all sorts of the gifts that God had intended for us. And you're right. I want to say something that's very interesting, because the fact that you called in right behind Lillian, and Lillian described herself as you know, the group of hardcore Catholics, and it sounds like you're fully invested in your Catholic faith as well, and raising your children and passing on the faith just like the first disciples did. It's interesting, because what I have seen is that there's the group of you guys, you Olivia and Lillian and the others, who really have really dove in completely, heart, mind, soul, body, into the faith. And then there's the others that are kind of standing at the edge of the pool, kind of looking, going, I could pick and choose this, pick and choose that. I've often called it cafeteria Catholics, because they can pick and choose what they think they want to adopt. And you're right. You're absolutely right. God is a God of all. He doesn't want just part of us. He doesn't just want us on Sunday. He wants all of us, because He created us. We're in His image and likeness. And so how unfortunate that those who are standing on the side of the pool, kind of just dipping their toe in the water, they're missing out. It's not, that's what's sad. I think that's what's really sad about the whole conversation we're having, is that I feel bad that people are missing out on all the gifts and the glory and the joy and the happiness, because of restricting ourselves and saying, no, I can't bend my will to that. God, I don't know what I was thinking, letting God be in control. But see, your example, your witness, Olivia, that's going to change the world. Your home life is going to change the world. So it's important, and I just wanted to affirm you in that. You and Lillian and the others that are in your same generation and feel the same way about your faith, you guys are doing great ministry work. You won't see the fruits of it until heaven probably, but you know what? You're doing great ministry work. Keep it up, and you sound like great moms and great families. Jerry, this inspires me. It really gets me really happy about our youth.
That's very good stuff. Thank you, Olivia, for sharing that. We're going to get to a couple more calls here. Mark, hang on. Raymond got in right before you, so we'll try and get to each of you, and hopefully JC if we can. But Raymond is in Lawrenceville, Georgia, listening to EWTN Radio on a Blaze Radio. Hi, Raymond. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Hi. I just wanted to call I was actually thinking I was going to tone down the panic volume, but the last couple of callers have done that fairly well. But on
stole your thunder, huh, Raymond?
Yeah. On the non-denominational or I don't know what you want to call it. What did you guys call it? Non
just non-religious,
Yeah. A lot of that, I think, is well, some of it is just the media in general. They go out there and they know what they want. They know what they want the results to be when they ask the questions in the first place. So, they might say that, well, we did this poll, but you can always ask yourself, well, where did they ask people? Were they in the middle of a low-rent mall at 10 o'clock in the morning, or were they at a job site somewhere, or were they, things like that? They were looking for the results they got, and once they got them, they throw them out there as widely as they can. So so there's a little bit of that in there, and I think part of this also, if they did get to people that would give decent or honest answers, I think part of this is, and I'm calling it the Protestant downfall. When they talk about I'm not aligned with any particular church, well, what do we mean when we say particular churches? Well, for the most part, unless it's the one Catholic, then it's the many and varied Protestants. And if people have been turned off by that, and I know that's happening a lot, that's where a lot of this is coming from. And so if you've got a Protestant downfall and media's out there pounding the anti-God thing, all that can do, when it's all said and done, all that can do is make the one organization that's been around as a public organization for over 2,000 years stand up even truer and brighter, right? That just makes the Catholic Church look all that more appealing, and it may not be to the people that they ask. It may. When I grew up, right, when we grew up in a sidelined God kind of a house, and even our great Saint Augustine, he said, "Oh, change me, Lord, but not today,
right now."
Okay? Yeah.
Well, Raymond, let me jump in here because we've got just a couple of minutes left, and you make, I think, several fantastic points. The world, the culture, the media especially, I'm way past the point of believing that they report the news. I think that they create a lot of the news that is going to sell papers and get viewers and commercial, sponsors on TV and so forth. So I think our thoughts are shaped largely by the media and by the culture around us. And so I think that was one great point that you made. And unfortunately, my short-term memory, Debbie, forgot the other one.
Raymond made a lot of great points, actually. I was taking a ton of notes.
Okay.
I just wish we had more time with him, but that's why we can keep the conversation going on Facebook or on take2show.com.
Yeah. Raymond, I apologize for that. It's going to come to me before the end of the show, so don't go away. But Raymond, thanks for the call. We did promise we would at least get to Mark. JC, apologies, we're not going to get to you. Mark, we've got about a minute for you, but it looks like you have an interesting thought. So, Mark, welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
This is Mark.
Yeah, hey, Mark.
Hey, hi, Jerry and Debbie. Appreciate your ministry.
Thank you.
My view on this is that we're seeing the fruits of the great deception. Somebody was talking earlier about I'm spiritual, I'm not religious. Well, that's untrue. We're all religious. Humanism is a religion, and that puts us at the center of the universe. I mean, there's Catholicism, Judaism, Hinduism, and there's humanism, and it's been fed to us as a religion. Bob Dylan, one of my favorite singers, poets, wrote a song called You Gotta Serve Somebody. The Bible says we are made to worship. If you do not worship the Creator God, then the next thing you're going to worship is yourself. And this can never work out. There seems to be two camps of people. One says, I do not believe. The other says, I will not believe. They won't accept an ultimate authority. I've heard
Mark,
it said.
Forgive me, Mark, on that note. We're just out of time. I apologize. And JC, again, I wish we could have gotten to you. But, Mark, this is, I think, a beautiful, beautiful way to put a nice little bow and ribbon on top of this broadcast, because you are right. Everyone is religious. No matter what you believe, no matter how you live or what you practice, it's a religion of sorts, and there's a lot of religion of self out there going on right now. So, Mark, forgive me. I apologize to you for cutting you off there, but you can hear the music. We're running out of time. Want to direct your attention to Open Line with Father Larry Richards. 3 p.m. Eastern Time. He answers your calls on the new evangelization here on EWTN Radio.
And don't forget to get your tickets to the One Faith Experience. You can go to onefaithexperience.com. And we have 6 speakers, 2 bands.
And we need some volunteers, too.
We need volunteers. Go to onefaithexperience.com. Check it out.